Hi everyone, out doing something a little bit different today. I am out in Snowdonia of all places and doing a nice little route around the Ogwen Valley and bottom of the Carneddau, which I've not mountain biked around here before. Done lots of walking but never mountain biked, so come along, enjoy the ride and we'll see how it goes. So I left Capel Curig and headed off down the old Drovers Road that runs parallel to the A5, or as the Welsh like to call it, Nanty Benglog, and I apologise for my Welsh pronunciation, it does leave a little bit to be desired and I'm sure I'll get loads of grief off my Welsh friends for that. So yeah, it had all the promise of being a good ride. Bit wet on the ground as you can see, a few puddles around, but I was making good speed down the old Drovers Road, and certainly the views were quite good. A little bit of wind but nothing too much, and I was cracking along at a fair pace, and I could see Trefriw there heaving into view, and quite glad I wasn't going up there today. And then I thought I spotted someone famous. Okay. So either we've come across SpongeBob in front, or maybe some people who've been bouldering. We'll find out. No, it's people bouldering, it's not SpongeBob. Thank you.
There you go, people think we are strange hobbies, but we don't carry a mattress around strapped to our back. So yeah, I got to the end of the Drovers Road and then follow the track down through the farm.
There we go guys, and there's Trefriw. You can just about make out him and Eve on the top, or I can. I don't know whether you can with the on the camera. A little bit of cloud dusting around Heather Terrace, but other than that, it's quite clear up there today. Like I said, we're not going up there, we're going over there. Let's crack on.
Yeah, so I turned out of the entrance to the car park and the campsite onto the A5 and headed east for a little while, and fortunately there wasn't a long section on the road because it's not the safest place with cars howling past.
Well, thankfully that is now off the A5. We'll start the climb up.
Yeah, I started heading up the track and it was a pretty good track. I knew I'd got to follow this up towards the Leat at the on the lower slopes of Pen Llithrig and Pen Llithrig y Wrach. And I was quite optimistic at this stage, although I have walked this area quite a lot in the past and I knew that the track wouldn't be this good all the way up, but I didn't realise quite how soon I was going to go off the beaten track. So I came in through the farmyard here towards the house, and the bridle way turns off to the left here just by that post, and it very quickly gets very rough and very bumpy. I mean, the e-bike was a great help, but as you can see, it's very much pick your own path around here. There's little tiny hints of path. You can see where it's going, but it's hard work, and it's hard to get a bit of momentum up in places. And of course, it's very wet as well. An awful lot of water runs off. It's very boggy, as you'll see shortly. Came down here and I was confronted with this interesting gate setup followed by a stream crossing.
Yeah.
But that water was rather deep.
That's going to be a cold and wet one. Let's see what we can work out with this.
Yes, and you can see there's some quite hefty rocks here that I didn't fancy riding over and then trying to ride over the bridge. So
I think that's doable. Right. Yeah. Those better riders amongst you could probably ride that, but I'm not risking it. So I've pushed over there.
yeah, I think that was probably the most sensible option there. And the uphill went downhill very rapidly after that. As you can see here, it gets very boggy.
Yeah, okay.
Now I definitely recommend not doing this route in the winter. In the summer it would probably be a lot better. This bit wasn't too bad, but the trouble with that sphagnum moss is it is like riding across a sponge, and you never quite know whether you're going to sink 2 inches or 2 feet into it. And I didn't really fancy going over the handlebars into a big soggy sponge. So eventually I got up towards the leat, and I was quite pleased with that because I knew once I hit the leat there was a good path to follow, a good track to ride. Except as you can see, they've been doing some work here, and they've put these very nice fences and gates up, and the gates are locked, and this is supposed to be a bridle way. So you've either, sorry about the brakes. Yeah, you've either got to go over the fence, or I noticed there was a reasonable track running parallel to the leat, so I thought I'd follow that down until I got to this fence, and there was no way around this one. This was a case of lift your bike over the fence. Now, as I'm sure anybody who rides an e-bike will know, they're not light. It's about 25-26 kilos. Good job I've been going to the gym, innit? So having got the bike over, it's time for me to climb over, minding the barbed wire. I should point out on the map this is very clearly a bridle way, and this route came out of an official mountain biking book. So you can see the work they've been doing here. This is like the overflow, I think, from the leat down into a stream. So I thought, oh, once I'm over here, I'll be good. Wrong. Another gate, another locked gate, another kissing gate to walk through. So I managed to get the bike around the side of that, and these always come in pairs because they're either side of a bridge. So I go around the other one. And then we get going down here, and this carries on down the leat. It's making good time riding down the track, but then keep coming to these, and it's lift the bike over the fences again. And away we go. Again, making good time to again. I think there's about all told about 10 fences I had to lift my bike over. So then we crossed this bridge and headed off up to the left. and out into the open hillside, which then got boggy again. So every time I crossed an obstacle and thought things were going to get better, I found another obstacle. So as I headed across the hillside, Llyn Cowlyd comes into view, and it was quite a nice view, to say the least, and one I was pleased to see. Now the guidebook describes this as a rocky path.
And you still won't make out where we're going. Is that path around to the left hand side of the llyn?
Beautiful views down Llyn Cowlyd there, and I started heading off down the track, which was largely level with sort of gentle ups and downs, but because there was it was pretty much level, it was very hard to get momentum on here. With all these rocks, you'd get a decent run and then suddenly hit a rocky section and a twisty section, and it slows you down again. I must admit, I really would like to go back in the summer and have another go at this ride, because I'm sure without all the water, the rocks would be less slippy, you'd be able to get a bit more speed up, and it would be a totally different ride. And one thing I would advise as well, you're quite a way from civilization here. You need to be pretty self-sufficient here. One, you've got to be careful, as you'll see in a minute, and secondly, you need to make sure you've got your own navigation, your own survival kit, and so on, first aid kit, a means of contacting help, and a GPS or something, or the ability, a good ability to read a map so you can locate where you are should you need to, because again, if the weather conditions changed, you could be in all sorts of trouble. And I'd certainly took the precaution of carrying lights and all the other various kit that I considered I might need if I had a mechanical or something worse. It is something you probably need to be aware of if you're used to riding trail centres rather than riding real paths out in the mountains, is you can't just nip down the trail centre for a piece of cake and a cup of tea if you want to have a break on here. You've got to make sure whatever you need, you've got with you. So certainly at this stage here, I'm about 7 miles out from Capel Curig behind me and all those fences in the marsh, or about another 10 miles out round the far end of the llyn and down into Trefriw before I reach any civilization. So the amount of concentration it takes riding down these is quite I think it's more mentally tiring than physically to a degree, because you have to pay so much attention to where you're going. It's hard to read the path too far ahead, because you're having to keep an eye on all these loose rocks that are around and so on. You can hear the water as well sploshing around. Nice to get on the grass and be able to make a bit of decent speed up. Yes, that hurt. And I think I was probably a mixture there of me relaxing, having come off the rocky sections and riding on the grass, and not paying as much attention as perhaps I should have done, and just caught the front wheel in a bit of a ditch and went over the bars and damaged a few ribs. But like I said a few minutes ago, I was about midpoint on the ride here, so there was no point in going back. It was just a case of carry on. The downside was every bump I hit now was hurting my ribs, and it was hard work. But hey ho, that's mountain biking. You've got to be aware of these things, and it does sort of highlight the risks that are involved in this, and how switched on and how much attention you really do need to pay. On the positive, the actual ride got a bit better at this stage now. The track improved again, and it became easier going and easier riding. It wasn't by any means all downhill, but there was a lot more down than up, which I was very grateful for at this point in time. I think had I not had my little excursion, I'd have been probably going it significantly quicker down here, but I was very conscious that I didn't want to go over the top again. So I was taking the smoother line, as you can see here, and trying to make it a safe descent as well as a fast one. So I dropped her down to Brynnog Uchaf, or something like that, and then there is quite a long tarmac section, which isn't actually that bad. It's a hard slog of a climb out of the bottom of the valley from the pipeline, but it was quite rideable on the e-bike. The Cube made relatively easy work of it, even in my fragile state. And then once you hit the top, you get some quite nice views and start this long downhill section. And again, I possibly could have gone a bit faster down here had I not been feeling so fragile. And also in the guidebook it did warn that this section has some very mossy switchbacks, and they can be very slippy when wet. And you can see here in the middle of the road the green bits that are slippy, and as I was very conscious going around the switchbacks that I really didn't want to fall off on the tarmac, so I took my time a bit down here. And this is the long descent, which is actually quite nice, all the way down into the village of Trefriw. I think the brakes were pretty much getting cooked by now, to be honest. So this junction there, you turn right and head away from Trefriw, and then down towards Llyn Crafnant, and you ride all the way along the side of Llyn Crafnant. And it kind of feels you're on the home straight at this point, but you're actually far from it. So they get to the end of Llyn Crafnant and you come off the tarmac and onto the bridle way again and start climbing up into the hills called Crimpeau. Crimpeau, something like that. I do apologise again for my pronunciation. And this starts off okay as a bit of a ride on quite a good bridle way and across fields, and then you start to climb up there to the right into that sort of bit of a pass you can make out there, and it gets progressively more and more difficult, and there's a fair bit of hiker bike involved up there. So I started off riding. It was a bit slippy, and I was doing a bit of tacking to try and make life a bit easier. But ultimately, even on the e-bike, it was get off and push. I was quite grateful for walk mode at this stage. You can see the guy in front there with his trekking poles, and he kept me company most of the way up here. So once I got to the top, then it really did feel like it was all downhill to the end, but it wasn't quite that simple. You can just see Mol Shabod there in the clouds in the distance. So at this stage, after the walk up Crimpeau, my legs were about shot. So in the ideal world, I'd been stood up on the pins and rolling down these and getting a nice turn of speed up. In the real world, my legs were like jelly, and I kept getting cramp in both legs. So I was just rolling down this at a relatively steady pace, trying hard not to do anything stupid. So yeah, one thing I would say, if you are thinking of doing this route, and I will put links to it in the notes, then please be aware this is not an easy route. It's around 17 miles. It is hard work. It is remote. You need to be pretty fit even on an e-bike, and the consequences of having a big off are quite serious, so just be aware of that. So I was actually quite enjoying these bits when I could get a bit of momentum up here, because the views were nice. It was largely downhill. Certainly the trend was downhill. I just wish my legs weren't so shot, so I could have enjoyed it a bit more. But I'll certainly be back in the summer to have another crack at it, I think. So if you do enjoy the videos, please hit the like button. It all helps. And leave a comment. I'll try and get back to you. I normally manage to. And let us know what you think. Now this section is worthy of note. I was quite surprised to find what appeared to be a country lane appear up the side of the mountain, and what this is part of a project for accessible tracks into the mountains, and the various organisations are up in arms about this. They're spending in the region of £200 million putting in these tracks that you could virtually drive a car up. And whilst from my perspective I was quite grateful at this stage for a bit of easy going, you can see there that there's a mini digger, and they drive dumper trucks up and down these, bringing in the stone to make these routes accessible. And I believe that route is going over all the way to Llyn Crafnant, which will totally destroy the walker's path and the mountain biking route. So not happy at all with that, really, although I was pleased with the easy drop down. Came off at the corner here and turned right over the footbridge, saying hello to my Welsh friends, and then onto this much better, more natural surface of these rocks, and headed off down now to Capel Curig.
So this is pretty much the last bit of the video now. It just goes on like this now, down through the woods and brings you out at Capel Curig. Thanks very much for watching, folks. Hope you enjoy the video. Please bop the like button and leave us a comment, and be safe on them trails and try not to fall off like I did. Cheers, folks. See you next time.